and get ready to zoom back in to the massive game we have been waiting all off season for. And that was Oregon taking on Penn State. There in Happy Valley for a massive whiteout game. Last year, these two met in the Big Ten championship game. And then they meet again here in the regular season. This is just why we love the sport of college football. Close game there at the end. Oregon's defense, you got to give it to them. They played 3 excellent quarters to allow themselves not to lose basically what they have kind of built there in those first, again, 3 quarters. They were kind of running away with it. They made the better halftime adjustments. I think there was only 4 drives in that third quarter. The last drive where the Ducks scored on ended up going into the fourth. But it was 2 drives to start off for them there in the second half where they pulled away 17-3. And then you were like, okay, this is the moment where the Ducks just put the game away. And they had several chances to do that. But Drew Aller finally turned it on for about 1.5 quarters and sent this game to overtime. 30-24. And thank you for any of you guys joining us for that watch long. We had a pretty decent amount of numbers there, so thank you for that. As I'm catching my breath. Penn State just wasn't good on offense. 137 yards passing. We kind of expected that. Drew Aller has just not been good here in 2025 whatsoever. 14 for 25. I wonder what his QPR rating is going to be after this one. Threw an interception, which was in overtime. That ended the game. And then only 139 yards on the ground. They had about like 250 in that Big Ten championship game, and they still lost by, I think it was multiple possessions, maybe 1.5. And here, yeah, they struggled in that first half. I think it was like less than 40 yards on the ground. It was like, is Penn State going to figure out how to run the ball? I guess not. Because then I guess they recovered. They ended up getting, over 100 yards there in the second half, but that was a big issue. This offensive line that should be a hell of a lot better. It seemed like they were actually the away team versus Oregon, who handled the noise pretty well. During the game, the commentary team was talking about how the communication was going on between Dante Moore and the offensive line, and when the ball was being snapped, it was all just physical contact and seeing physical movement. It was no cadence, which was kind of crazy. But that's kind of the thing you have to prepare for when you go into an environment like Happy Valley on a whiteout game. But Dante Moore had an excellent outing, I would say. 248 yards through the air. 29 for 39. Average only 6.4 yards per throw. But he had to make a lot of short stuff to allow the defense to basically fall for it eventually. They did have 176 yards on the ground. I took him a bit of time to kind of pound it out. Again, it was towards the end of that third quarter where it was like the Penn State front end was starting to slip there, get a little bit more worn out. They were running the ball with a true freshman, Hill Jr., who had an excellent night, contributed a lot of that 176 yards. But they averaged 4.5 yards per carry. That's just some good stuff. On top of that, you only have, I think it was 2 penalties that were false starts. The communication of the offensive line just well prepared to handle this very, very loud crowd there in Happy Valley. And they were ultimately the better offense throughout the night. Even though it was only 3-3 going into halftime, they were moving the ball better. There was more 3-and-outs or short play drives for Penn State. And again, they look more like the away team versus Oregon. It actually kind of felt like Penn State was, playing Ohio State or Michigan in the past. And you just kind of knew that they just didn't have enough to win a game against one of those two, and it seems like it's Oregon joining the company of those two previous programs, as I think they're in a solid driver's seat, not only to make the playoff, but to also defend their Big Ten title and then possibly get deeper and have a proper run there in the playoffs. As I think Dan Lanning will prepare himself, and he did a big thing in this game. He won his first overtime game as the Oregon head coach as well. So there's some interesting things to let you know about. But both of the teams weren't too good on third down. 6 for 18 for Oregon, 6 for 15 for Penn State. Lot of fourth down attempts. Oregon had to end 2 drives on downs, while Penn State went 3 for 3 on fourth down. But that was obviously not good enough because they came short. Should have played a hell of a lot better there in the first half. They could not get anything going on the ground. And it was a little bit too late, even though the game got sent to overtime. You know, if they had just one drive there in the beginning of the game that got them maybe a field goal or a touchdown, they could have ultimately won this towards the end. And it kind of felt like that, especially in overtime. Like, wow, they're really going to sneak this win over the Ducks somehow, some way. Kenyon Shadiq, who we see him hurdling this Penn State defender, did that last year in the Big Ten championship game. Didn't score a touchdown. This was actually in the first half. I was promising the stream that I was going to show the highlight of this. I could not find anyone that posted it, but I found this instead. So I hope that makes up for it. But this guy, player of the game for me, along with Tuioti, the defensive end for Oregon, and Mateo Uiagalelei. Those two defensive ends, probably the best bookends in the country. Not because of their pass rush, which they did get to Drew Aller. There was 2 sacks. Both of them that I just mentioned had 1 each. But the run defense, there at times were struggling in certain plays. But ultimately, most downs, that defensive front for the Oregon Ducks played almost lights out. I was kind of surprised to see the end result of 139 yards on the ground, because it didn't feel like that at all. I felt like Penn State was going to barely get 100 yards. And that was pretty surprising, because you have Singleton and Katron Allen, 2 guys that got 1,000 yards last season each. And then on top of that, when they played Oregon in that championship game, that was combined for over 200. But Hill Jr., 82 yards on the ground. He was kind of, again, one of those difference makers. Dante Moore extending the pocket, not allowing himself to get taken down. He got sacked 0 times. Pressured quite a bit in that game-winning touchdown, technically, because it set up that interception drive in second overtime. No, he had to avoid one of the best defenders in all of college football, Danny Dennis Sutton, and hit Gary Bryant Jr. for that TD there in second overtime. And then that helped him win the game. That was kind of like, I guess, his Heisman moment to start off really his campaign in maybe even winning that award later on this season. But again, Oregon wins. As we got this one right, but unfortunately we didn't get the points difference correct. Ended up being 6 points. We said 9. So very close there. Obviously we got the team. And the difference makers, Dante Moore to DeCorian Moore. Well, that was pretty much correct, because DeCorian Moore, the true freshman for the Ducks, 7 receptions, 89 yards. Helped out the Ducks move the chains quite a bit. No touchdowns, but was still key in getting this Duck victory on the road. And I'm pretty glad that my offseason pick held, as some of these big games has just not gone my way. But I'm very glad that this one did, though. But before we move on, please hit that thumbs up button, especially if you're an Oregon or Penn State fan. really helps us out quite a bit. As those are our